Welcome to UG Academy. Before starting today's content, I would first like to add on to my last video. In my last video, I talked about default function arguments, but I forget to mention one thing, that if a function contains both default arguments and non-default arguments, then those non-default arguments must come first. Like this function, it has a long list of arguments. However, the arguments that does not take a default value will come first, followed by the list of arguments that takes a default value. That is the rule for creating function with variable with default value. So let's start today's video. Today, we are going to talk about function overloading. Before talk about this, let's talk about the signature of a function. In C++, other than name, a function also has its signature. The function signature is the list of formal parameters here, without their identifier names. This means that the signature of this pick1 function is integer and float. Not this one, not this one, not this one, and not this one. Only these two data types, integer and float. And this is the signature of the pick1 function. In C++, we can have two functions of the same names. However, they must differ in the signature. So in this case, these two functions is invalid because they have the same name and the same signature. So although they have different latent type, they are invalid. When creating function with the same name but different signature, we call that function overloading. And it can sometimes be useful when we deal with different data types. Let's have a look at an example. In this example, we are simply going to square different variables with different data types using function overloading. So we first create a square function for float data type here. And for the sake of clarity, I also add this line within the function to indicate that this function has been called. And then we will also create the same function for the integer data type here. The same. Okay? And then we are going to add our main function. The main function is just for demonstration purpose, so it will be very simple. We simply create two integer variable and a float variable. And then we call the square function with the same name but different signatures several times to demonstrate how function overloading works. So although they have the same name, they are actually calling different functions because the arguments that pass in are in different data types. So let's have a look at the result. For the sake of time, I've already pre-compiled the program. You squared an integer, you squared a float number, and you squared an integer. Exactly match the data type we put in here, integer, float, and integer. So this is a demonstration of how function overloading works in C++. That's all for today.